On the night my husband was supposed to die, I was the only one in that backyard who knew it. The moment I stepped out of the restroom at our anniversary party in Houston, my eyes locked straight onto one thing. My sister-in-law, Kristen, was leaning over my husband's drink. And she wasn't alone. Her husband, my husband's older brother Brad, pressed something small into her palm. A tiny packet. His hand covered it like they were trading contraband. I froze mid-step. They didn't see me. I watched her tear the packet open with her thumbnail and tilt it into my husband's glass. Like someone who had rehearsed the motion 100 times. The powder dissolved instantly. Kristen tapped the rim of the glass twice, then slid it back into the exact spot my husband had left it before stepping outside to talk to a friend. Brad nodded once, like this was a business deal. A done thing. And then they both straightened up and smiled like nothing had happened. I stood there, half hidden by the hallway wall, my heart beating hard enough to drown out the music. My hands shook so badly I had to grab the banister to steady myself. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tackle her right there on the hardwood floor. But something inside me went cold, a strange, sharp calm. I forced my feet to move. I walked straight toward our table, acting like I saw nothing. Acting like this was still the celebration of our 10-year marriage. Acting like my in-laws hadn't just tried to kill someone. My husband's glass sat right where Kristen had left it. I didn't stop walking. I didn't think. I simply picked up his glass like a loving wife clearing space, and in the same movement, I grabbed Brad's glass from the left side of his plate. The swap was fast, clean, silent. Not a single person noticed. Not Kristen. Not Brad. Not the guests cheering near the DJ booth. I set the poison glass right in front of Brad's seat. I set the clean glass where my husband would return. Then I smiled. My hands were ice cold, but my face stayed calm. 20 minutes later, right as my husband walked back toward me, Brad dropped his fork, clutched his throat, and collapsed onto the floor. The entire room screamed. And Kristen's eyes, those same hateful eyes, shot straight to me. She knew. Oh, she knew. If you're still here with me, tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. Now back to the story. People always say anniversaries make you emotional, but ours had started beautifully. 10 years together. 10 years of love, work, struggles, and rebuilding our little life in Houston, Texas. My husband Michael had insisted on throwing a small backyard party with our closest friends and family. I remember telling him, "Baby, let's keep it simple." But he wanted to celebrate us, celebrate surviving everything life threw at us. And trust me, life threw plenty. Especially in the form of his brother, Brad, and Brad's wife, Kristen. If you love stories of betrayal, hidden truths, and justice that strikes when no one expects it, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. New stories drop every day, each one darker, sharper, and more unforgettable than the last. Now back to the story. To most people, Michael and Brad look like nothing more than two brothers raised in the same Texas suburb, same blue eyes, same tall frame, same last name. But the difference between them was night and day. Brad was loud, entitled, and always comparing himself to everyone around him. Michael was quiet, focused, hardworking. He'd built a small HVAC business from scratch. Brad bounced from one big idea to the next. Then there was the part everyone pretended not to see. They hated me. Not because I ever did anything to them. Not because of anything I said. But because I'm black, and I married into their white family. They never said it out loud at first. It started with small things, comments about my hair, jokes about girls like me, questions about where I'm really from, even though I was born and raised in Dallas. Brad's parents tried to stay neutral, but I always sensed a tension, like I was an unexpected guest they didn't know how to handle. But when both parents passed away last month, everything changed. Sudden car accident. No warning, no time to prepare. One day they were talking about a summer trip to Austin. The next day, I was helping my husband pick out a suit for their funeral. What came after the funeral was worse. The lawyer gathered us in a conference room in downtown Houston, overlooking the traffic crawling on I-45. The will was simple. Brad would take the 3 better properties, the newer ones in the Woodlands and Sugarland. Michael would take the 2 older rental properties with higher maintenance costs. And the $10 million in liquid assets would be split equally between the 2 brothers. It was that last part, The money, the part that couldn't be argued or justified or twisted, that made Brad stiffen like someone had punched him in the ribs. When the lawyer said, both sons receive $5 million each, I watched Brad's jaw lock so hard I thought he'd break a tooth. Kristen's lips tightened like she was swallowing fire. Equal of $5 million each wasn't good enough for them. Michael accepted what the will said, because he always chooses peace. He always tries to keep the family together. From that day on, Kristen's behavior shifted from cold to openly hostile. There was a night 2 weeks ago when she cornered me in the kitchen after Sunday dinner at their house. Michael had stepped outside to take a call. Everyone else was in the living room watching TV. She stood so close her perfume made my eyes water. She whispered, "One day your husband won't be here to protect you. And when that day comes, I'll make sure you learn what real suffering feels like." I remember standing there with the dirty dishes still in my hands, shaking, unable to form a sentence. She smiled and walked away like she had just commented on the weather. I told Michael later, but he brushed it off. "She's been stressed. Ignore her," he said. I wanted to believe him. But Brad didn't help things. He had his own moments, nasty little comments about who the money would really go to once Michael was gone, and jokes about how some people marry up for a reason. He said it laughing, but I never forgot the way his eyes didn't match the smile. And then came tonight, our 10th anniversary. We set up a tent in the backyard. Music playing, brisket on the grill, lights hanging from the fence. It was supposed to be peaceful. It was supposed to be our moment. Michael was glowing, laughing, hugging friends, thanking everyone for coming. But the whole time, Kristen threw daggers at me with her eyes. Brad kept hovering around the tables, always close to the drinks. If I'm honest, I already felt something was off. The way they whispered. The way they kept glancing at Michael when they thought no one was looking. The way Brad put his arm around Michael's shoulders with that fake brotherly smile he never used unless he wanted something. All the pieces were already there. I just didn't want to believe that family, even one that hated me, would ever try to kill their own blood. But that was before I saw what they put in his drink. People think betrayal hits like lightning, sudden, sharp, unexpected. But mine came quietly, building over weeks, stacking piece by piece until it collapsed on top of me in one terrible moment. And it all came down to money. Not the properties. Not the family history. Just the $10 million my in-laws didn't want to split. 2 weeks before our anniversary, I walked into the living room at Brad and Kristen's house and caught them whispering so fast they looked guilty the moment my shadow hit the doorway. Brad had a stack of papers on the coffee table. Kristen snatched them up before I could see, but not fast enough. I saw numbers, big numbers, rows of calculations, and my husband's name highlighted. Michael walked in a minute later, completely unaware. He sat down on the couch, smiling like nothing was wrong. He always wanted to believe the best in people. I didn't. Not anymore. That same night, Kristen followed me into the hallway on my way to the guest bathroom. She stopped so close I felt her breath on my cheek. "You and your husband don't deserve what you got," she whispered. "Some people are born to struggle. Others are born to win." I stepped back. "Why would you say that?" She smiled. A slow, hateful smile. "Just watch your back. Life has a way of balancing things." I wanted to run. Something in her tone felt dangerous, like she wasn't speaking metaphorically at all. But before I could respond, she flipped her hair over her shoulder and walked away as if she just commented on the weather. A few days later, something else happened. I woke up early one morning and saw I had a text from an unknown number. It was just a photo. A picture of me. Taken from behind. Walking alone into a grocery store in Houston. There was no caption. I deleted it immediately, telling myself it was spam, maybe some idiot who got the wrong number. But a part of me wondered. Was someone watching me? I didn't tell Michael. He already had too much on his plate with the loss of his parents and managing their estates. But I kept the unease inside my chest. Then came the moment that sealed everything together. It was the afternoon before our anniversary party. Michael had gone to pick up the cake, and I went to the backyard to finish setting up the tables. The breeze was warm, and the smell of barbecue was already drifting from the neighbor's yard. For a few minutes, I felt calm again, like maybe I had imagined everything. But when I went inside to grab the extra napkins, I heard voices in the study, Brad and Kristen. I stopped. The door was slightly open. "We do it tonight," Brad said, his voice hard, low, cold. "The timing is perfect. A crowd, alcohol, lots of people touching glasses. No way to trace anything." Kristen whispered, "Are you sure it'll look natural? I don't want suspicion on me." Brad snorted. "Trust me. He's younger, healthier. His heart stopping suddenly won't shock anyone. Stress, grief, alcohol, whatever. They'll buy it." My heart stopped. I grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. Then Kristen asked the question that made my blood freeze. "And what about her?" "Her. Me." Brad's voice dropped again. "She won't matter once he's gone. Without him, she has no claim. Everything falls to me as the next of kin. She'll be out of the picture." Kristen laughed softly. "Good. I can't wait to see her black face when she realizes she's nothing without him." I covered my mouth with my hand to keep from gasping. They didn't just hate me. They didn't just want the money. They wanted my husband gone, permanently. My vision blurred. My ears rang. My legs felt weak. I backed away quickly, afraid they'd open the door. I went outside, walked to the far side of the yard, and sat on the grass. My hands trembled so much I pressed them between my knees. I wanted to run to Michael, tell him everything. But part of me knew he wouldn't believe it. He'd think it was grief, stress, misunderstanding. He loved his brother too much. So I swallowed the terror. And on the night of our anniversary party, the betrayal finally reached its peak. When I left the restroom and saw Kristen empty that packet into Michael's drink, everything I had overheard clicked into place. Every whisper, every look, every threat. This was their plan. They weren't bluffing. They weren't exaggerating. They were ready to kill him. And for what? $5 million he had earned just as much as Brad? I stood there, watching the powder vanish in the golden liquid, and something sharp inside me snapped clean in half. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't family tension. This was murder. They smiled and walked away from the table like nothing happened. Kristen smoothed her dress. Brad adjusted his watch. Both looked more relaxed than I'd ever seen them. They were sure the plan would work. I saw. I understood. And in that one horrible moment, the betrayal burned through every memory I had of this family. The laughter, the Sunday dinners, the fake hugs, the forced smiles, all of it was ash. This was no longer about inheritance. This was survival. And I knew exactly what had to be done next. When Brad collapsed 20 minutes after the glass switch, it felt like the world moved in slow motion. 1 second he was laughing at some joke his co-worker told, cutting into a piece of brisket, acting like a man who had already won the biggest gamble of his life. Then his fork clattered on the plate. His hand flew to his throat. He made a choking sound, loud and ugly. People turned. Chairs scraped. Someone gasped. Kristen screamed his name so loudly the music stopped mid-beat. For a second, one single second, my heart froze in my chest. Not because I felt bad for Brad. Not because I regretted the switch. But because everything was now real. There was no going back. And I had been the one to flip the outcome. I watched as Brad toppled off his chair and hit the ground hard. The room erupted into chaos. Guests rushed in, shouting for someone to call 911. A few people tried to lift him. Someone started chest compressions. Kristen was on her knees clawing at his shirt, crying and yelling, "What's happening? What's happening?" But all I could hear was my own heartbeat. My husband, Michael, ran toward the noise, pushing through the crowd. He knelt down, wide-eyed, confused, terrified, because he genuinely loved his brother despite everything. "Brad. Hey. Hey, stay with us," he shouted. I stood a few feet away, my hands clasped in front of me, trying to keep them from trembling. Inside, two parts of me were fighting, the wife who wanted to protect her husband, and the woman who knew she had just played God. It was the quietest kind of horror. But it was also the first moment I felt in control. Because the truth was simple, he wasn't supposed to be the one on the floor. My husband was. That thought anchored me. I repeated it in my mind over and over like a prayer. He was supposed to die tonight. He. Not you. Not my husband. The ambulance arrived fast, faster than I expected. Houston EMTs stormed in, lifted Brad onto the stretcher, and rushed him out. Kristen almost fainted trying to follow them. Her heels kept slipping on the porch steps. Someone had to hold her upright. Michael turned to me, his face drained of color. "What happened?" he demanded. I swallowed. I don't know. He just collapsed. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. The police arrived shortly after the EMTs left, asking questions, trying to piece together what happened at a party that was supposed to be joyful. An officer approached me first. "Ma'am, did you see anything unusual? Did he drink alcohol? Did he eat something different?" I shook my head, steadying my voice. "Nothing I noticed." The officer moved on. Michael paced the grass, running his hands through his hair. "Why would he collapse like that?" he asked. "He was fine. Perfectly fine." I didn't answer. Because deep down, the realization was blooming fully. If I tell Michael now, he will fall apart. If I tell him now, he won't believe me. He'll think grief has twisted everything. And then he might even turn on me. I couldn't risk that. Not yet. While the backyard swirled with flashing lights and frantic guests, I stepped away from the crowd. Just a few feet. Just enough to breathe. That's when Kristen looked at me. Really looked. Her eyes narrowed, cold and calculating, even through the tears. She wasn't thinking about Brad at that moment, she was thinking about me. About what I might know. About what I might have seen. Her face twisted into something I'd never seen before. Not hatred. Not fear. Something darker. Accusation. She took a step toward me, but before she reached me, an officer pulled her aside to ask more questions. I exhaled. Then it came, the moment everything shifted inside me. As people panicked, cried, questioned, and speculated, I felt a strange calm settle in my bones. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I saw everything clearly. They tried to kill my husband. They planned it. They prepared it. They believed they would succeed. But I stopped it. Not by screaming. Not by fighting. Not by running. By thinking. By acting. By protecting the man who trusted me with his life. I realized the switch wasn't just a reaction, it was a decision. A cold, deliberate choice made in the space of a heartbeat. If someone must fall, it will not be Michael. I didn't poison anyone. I didn't introduce anything new. I simply returned their cruelty to the hand it came from. And now the truth, their truth, was about to unravel all on its own. When the officer returned to ask for guest statements, Kristen's voice cracked. Her story stumbled. Her lies tangled together. I felt my breath steady. My hands stop shaking. Because everything from this moment forward would expose them, not me. This was the turning point. The moment I stopped being a bystander in my own life. The moment I stepped out of fear, and into clarity. The moment I finally understood. They aimed for my husband's death. But what they shot was their own future. The hospital in Houston smelled like bleach and fear. We followed the paramedics through the sliding doors. Kristen was hysterical, grabbing everyone who walked by. Michael walked fast but stiff, like his legs might give out. I stayed one step behind him, close enough to touch, far enough to breathe. They rushed Brad into a room and shut the doors. We were left in the waiting area with bad coffee, buzzing lights, and a TV playing some sitcom no one watched. Kristen paced back and forth, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Every few seconds, she shot me a look like she wanted to tear my skin off. Michael sat with his elbows on his knees, head in his hands, shaking. I don't understand, he kept saying. He was fine. He was fine. I sat next to him and placed a hand on his back. My fingers gently pressed between his shoulder blades. He's in good hands now, I said quietly. It was the only safe sentence I had. 30 minutes passed. Maybe more. Time didn't make sense. Finally, a doctor in scrubs walked toward us. He had that look, the one doctors have when they're about to say something that changes everything. Family of Brad Taylor, he asked. We all stood. I'm his wife, Kristen said quickly, stepping forward. The doctor nodded. Your husband is stable for now. He's in critical condition, but he's breathing with support. We're moving him to ICU. Kristen sobbed with relief. Michael exhaled and leaned back against the wall. I watched the doctor's eyes. He wasn't finished. However, he added, we found something concerning in his blood work. There are traces of a toxic substance that are not consistent with anything we gave him here. My stomach dropped, even though I already knew. Kristen blinked. Toxic substance? What are you saying? The doctor looked at all of us. It appears your husband was poisoned. A strong, fast-acting substance. We've informed the authorities. They're on their way to speak with you. Kristen's hand flew to her mouth. Michael straightened. Poisoned? That's impossible. He was at our house. It was just a party. The doctor nodded slightly. They'll need details about what he ate and drank before he collapsed. Excuse me. He walked away. The room got quiet. Too quiet. I heard the hospital clock ticking. Kristen turned toward me, slow, deliberate. You, she whispered. I frowned. What? You did something. I know you did. You've been glaring at us for weeks. You've been jealous. You've poisoned the whole family against us. Her voice rose. What did you do to his drink? Michael snapped his head toward us. Kristen, stop. You can't just. She was near the table. Kristen screamed. I saw her. She was touching the glasses. I left his drink there, and when I came back, she was standing by it. She was shaking, pointing at me like a child accusing someone on a playground. All eyes were on me now. Michael's. Nurses. Strangers in the waiting room. My heart pounded, but my voice came out steady. I picked up glasses to clear the table, I said. Like I always do at parties. That's all I did. Kristen stepped closer, eyes wild. Liar. You've always wanted us gone. You've always hated us because we see through you. I held her gaze. That was the moment I decided. Running wouldn't save us. Silence wouldn't protect us. Truth, or at least the part that mattered, was the only way forward. Kristen, I said quietly, do you really want to talk about who wanted who gone? She froze for a second. Michael's eyes moved from her to me, confused. Before she could answer, 2 police officers walked into the waiting area. The doctor pointed them our way. Family of Brad Taylor, one of them asked. We all nodded. I'm Officer Ramirez, this is Officer Lewis. We've been told this may be a poisoning. We'll need statements from each of you. Separately. Kristen swallowed hard. Michael squeezed my hand once before they led us to different empty rooms. I ended up in a small consultation room with bad lighting and a plastic chair that squeaked when I moved. Officer Ramirez sat across from me with a notebook. Ma'am, can you tell me exactly what happened at the party? Start from when you first noticed anything unusual. I took a breath. This was it. I saw his wife put something into a glass, I said. Into the drink that was meant for my husband. The words left my mouth steady, clear. Ramirez didn't interrupt. Go on. I had stepped out to use the restroom, I continued. On my way back, I saw Brad hand Kristen a small packet. She opened it and poured it into my husband's drink. Then she placed the glass back on the table like nothing happened. Ramirez's pen scratched across the page. Did you confront her? He asked. No, I said. I panicked. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it wasn't right. I walked toward the table like nothing was wrong, and when they weren't looking, I moved the glasses. I put the drink she tampered with in front of Brad. I put a clean one where my husband would sit. You're sure she tampered with it? He asked. Yes. Could anyone else have touched the glass before the brother drank it? Not that I saw, I said. But we had a lot of guests. People were moving around. That's why I was scared. I didn't have proof. I only had what I saw. He studied me for a second. Why didn't you call the police right away? He asked. I looked down at my hands. Because no one ever believes the black wife who married into the nice white family with money, I said softly. Especially not when the targets are the grieving older son and his perfect wife. He didn't write that part. But I saw something shift in his eyes. He nodded once. We'll check prints on the glass and any remaining contents. We'll also be looking for that packet you mentioned. Do you have any idea where it might be? I saw her keep something small in her hand after she poured it in, I said. She could have thrown it away at our house. Ramirez stood. Thank you, ma'am. You may be asked to give a formal recorded statement later. When I came out of the room, I saw Kristen being led past me by Officer Lewis. Her face was pale. Her hair was messy. She looked less like the composed woman who always insulted me with a smile and more like someone whose mask had finally cracked. Our eyes met. You're lying, she hissed. You're lying about me. I didn't respond, because the truth was already working on its own. The police went to our house that same night. They collected the glasses, the trash, anything they could find near the drinks table. They bagged napkins, bottles, even the half-used ice. Hours later, we were still at the hospital when Ramirez returned to the waiting area. He asked to speak with Michael and Kristen together. I followed. He didn't stop me. We found residue of the same substance in one of the discarded cups and an empty packet in the trash, he said. We also found partial fingerprints. My chest tightened. Kristen crossed her arms. Anybody could have touched that, she snapped. Ramirez nodded. We'll run them all. But for now, we'll need you to come with us to answer further questions at the station, ma'am. Michael blinked. What? She's his wife. She wouldn't. Ramirez looked at him carefully. We're not making any accusations yet. But poisoning is a serious crime. We have to follow procedure. Kristen grabbed Michael's arm. Tell him I would never hurt Brad. Tell him. Michael looked lost. Torn between two worlds. He looked at her, then at me. I held his gaze. Mike, I said softly, they were talking earlier. In our house. About how tonight was the perfect timing. About how once you were gone, I'd have no claim. The color drained from his face. You heard that, he whispered. I nodded. He stared at Kristen. Is that true? He asked, voice shaking. Did you say anything like that? She stuttered. They're twisting everything. She's twisting everything. You know your brother. He would never. But there it was. She couldn't even finish the sentence. She couldn't say, we would never hurt you. Because she knew. And now he did too. Ramirez stepped closer. Ma'am, please come with us. Kristen yanked her arm away but didn't fight when they guided her down the hall. Her steps echoed. Her shoulders hunched. For the first time since I met her, she looked small. Michael watched her go, his eyes wet. Then he turned to me. You switched the glasses, he said quietly. Yes, I answered. Because they tried to kill you. He closed his eyes for a moment, like the weight of those words pressed against his ribs. When he opened them again, something was different. The blind loyalty was gone. What was left was pain and clarity. They were going to let me die, he whispered. Yes, I said. He nodded slowly, like a man realizing his entire life had been built on the wrong foundation. In that hallway, under harsh hospital lights, everything came out. The poison, the inheritance, the conversations I overheard, the threats, the glass. The lie of family finally shattered. And there was no going back. Michael and I didn't leave the hospital until just before sunrise. The sky over Houston was a soft gray, the kind that makes you wonder if morning is actually coming or if the night is just refusing to end. Michael walked beside me in silence, one hand in his pocket, the other loosely holding mine. His grip was warm but weak. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a single night. When we got home, the backyard still looked like the party was happening, half-empty cups, plates on tables, balloons drifting on the grass. The same space where Brad had stood laughing just hours earlier. The same space where they planned to end my husband's life. Michael stopped at the table where the drinks had been. I watched him stare at the spot where his glass used to be. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. I walked to him and placed my hand gently on his back. You're alive because you came back from that phone call late, I said quietly. If you came back 20 minutes earlier. He nodded, swallowing hard. For the first time since we got married, he cried into my shoulder like a boy who finally understood monsters weren't just in books. He held me tightly. Too tightly. Thank you, he whispered. I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it. I thought they'd just been stressed since Mom and Dad passed. I thought they were grieving. I thought, he broke off, wiping his face. I didn't know they hated me that much. I rested my forehead against his chest. They didn't hate you, I said softly. They wanted your half. He closed his eyes because hearing it out loud hurt more than imagining it. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, interviews, and statements. The police gathered more evidence. Toxicology reports confirmed the substance was intentional and concentrated. Fingerprints matched Kristen's and Brad's on the discarded packet. And the investigation quickly uncovered more. Kristen had searched online for the exact poison. Brad had withdrawn cash from their joint account days earlier. A scribbled note in Brad's desk said, 5M plus property after probate equals clean break. The district attorney moved fast. Brad remained in ICU, unable to speak clearly. Kristen was arrested and charged first. When Brad regained enough strength, he was charged too. Michael didn't go to see them. He didn't attend the hearings. He didn't answer their cousins' calls. He didn't defend them when neighbors tried to explain their behavior. He was done. One morning, sitting at the kitchen table with his coffee untouched, he looked at me and said, I want nothing from them. No inheritance. No contact. Nothing. I want to live my life far from anyone who wished me dead. But the lawyer explained something important. Attempted murder disqualified them from any share of their parents' estate. Every property, every asset, every dollar, everything that would have been theirs, was frozen, then reassigned according to Texas law. Michael didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He didn't even react. He stared at the floor and whispered, I never wanted this. When he looked at me, his eyes softened. But I want you, he said. And I want a life that isn't built on fear. For the first time in weeks, I felt my lungs fully expand. We spent the rest of that month cleaning the house, reorganizing our business, and taking long quiet walks at Buffalo Bayou Park, letting the breeze wash some of the heaviness away. One evening, we sat on a bench overlooking the water. The sky glowed orange and pink. Michael slipped his fingers between mine. You saved my life, he said. I just protected what's mine, I replied with a small smile. He laughed softly, the first real laugh since all of this started. And in the quiet that followed, I realized something. I had always thought Kristen's worst threat was, one day, he won't be around to protect you. But the truth was the opposite. When it mattered most, I protected him. And as the sun dipped behind the Houston skyline, painting everything gold, I understood the last piece. They tried to kill my husband for money. But in the end, all they did was expose themselves, and lose everything. And I walked away with the only thing that mattered. My husband alive. My peace intact. My dignity unbroken. The night they plotted his death, they ended their own future. And I finally stepped into mine. If stories of betrayal and hidden truths keep you thinking long after they end, click the story showing on your screen now.